My sister wore my wedding dress to marry my husband in the courthouse bathroom while I watched through the ventilation grate, and she made sure my children threw the rice. I was 32 years old. Marcus was 35, the man I'd loved since college, the father of my 2 children, the only person who'd ever made me feel like I was enough without being more. We'd been married 8 years. Lily was 6, Noah was 4. They had his eyes, my chin, and the kind of innocence that makes you want to burn the world to keep them safe. My sister Vivian was 34, 2 years older, 2 inches taller, 2 degrees meaner. She'd always taken what was mine: my dolls when we were children, my scholarships when we were teens, my mother's attention, my father's pride, my graduation party, my first apartment. She didn't want these things. She wanted me not to have them. That was the difference between wanting and taking, between desire and destruction. Vivian didn't collect prizes, she collected absences. Mine, I didn't know about the affair, not for the 2 years it lasted. Not for the year before that when they'd started, when I'd been pregnant with Noah, when I'd been too tired to notice that my husband's late nights at the office coincided with my sister's yoga retreats. I was busy. I was happy. I was stupid in the way that happy people are stupid, believing that love was a fortress when it was really just a house of cards built on a table someone else owned. I found out on a Tuesday. Tuesdays were my grocery days. I'd forgotten the list and come back for it, walking through the garage door instead of the front, the way I always did when I was alone. I heard them in the living room. Not having sex, that would have been simpler, cleaner, something I could understand as betrayal and process as pain. They were planning. The kids, Marcus was saying. Lily's already asking why mommy's always tired. We need to be careful. She's always been fragile, Vivian said. My sister's voice, using the word she'd weaponized since childhood. Fragile. The diagnosis she'd given me when I cried at movies, when I needed sleep, when I loved something too much. A few more months of stress, she'll break. They'll see it. The courts will see it. You'll get full custody, I'll be the fun aunt who steps in, and by the time the divorce is final, the kids won't even miss her. I stood in the garage. I didn't breathe. I held the grocery list in my hand: bread, milk, Noah's allergy medicine, and I felt the paper become something else, something holy, the last normal thing I would hold for a very long time. I don't want to hurt her, Marcus said. But his voice was small, the voice of a man who'd already chosen and was just negotiating the price. You're not hurting her, Vivian said. You're saving the kids from a mother who can't hold herself together. You're giving them stability. Love, a real family, she paused. And when it's done, I'll be here. I've always been here. I'm the strong one, Marcus. I'm the one who doesn't break. I walked back out. I got in my car. I drove to the grocery store. I bought bread, milk, Noah's allergy medicine. I came home, I made dinner. I kissed my husband and hugged my sister and put my children to bed and lay in the dark next to a man who was measuring my breaking point like a carpenter measures wood. They broke me over 4 months. It was systematic, clinical, beautiful in its cruelty. Vivian moved in, just until she finds a place, she said, her smile sympathetic, her eyes calculating. She took over the mornings, making the kids' lunches, braiding Lily's hair in styles I'd never learned, giving Noah the kind of attention that made him giggle and reach for her instead of me. She took over the evenings, cooking Marcus's favorite meals, asking about his day in ways that made him feel important, leaving me to do dishes in a kitchen that smelled of her perfume. She poisoned me slowly. Not with pills, Vivian was smarter than that. With exhaustion, with doubt, with 1,000 tiny cuts of comparison. Don't worry about the laundry, Sarah, you look so tired. I'll do it. The kids barely noticed you were late to pick up, don't cry. Marcus mentioned you've been forgetting things again. The doctor's number is on the fridge. I started forgetting things, because I was tired, because I was anxious. Because every time I reached for a memory, I found her standing in front of it, smiling, saying, "Let me help you with that." I was diagnosed with stress-induced cognitive issues. I was prescribed sleeping pills that made me groggy, anti-anxiety meds that made me flat, antidepressants that made me feel like I was watching my life through fogged glass. And then the incident. Noah had an allergic reaction, peanuts, hidden in a cookie Vivian had accidentally bought from the wrong bakery. I was asleep, drugged by the pills she'd started leaving on my nightstand, the ones I hadn't been prescribed but she'd thought might help. Marcus found him, saved him, rushed him to the hospital. I woke to an empty house and a note. "You almost killed our son. We need to talk." We talked. In the kitchen, where Vivian stood at the counter making tea, where Marcus sat with his hands folded like a man at a funeral, where my children were at Vivian's apartment with her watching them so we can focus. "You're not well," Marcus said. His voice was gentle. The voice he'd used when I was in labor, when I was scared, when I trusted him more than I trusted myself. "The doctor says you need rest. Intensive treatment. Vivian's found a facility. I don't need a facility," I said. My voice was strange, distant, the voice of the woman they'd built out of pills and exhaustion and doubt. "I need my family. I need to sleep in my own bed. I need you to tell her to leave." Marcus looked at Vivian. Vivian looked at me. She smiled. "Sarah," she said, using my name like a diagnosis. "The kids are scared. Lily asked me yesterday if Mommy was going to die like Grandma did. They need stability. They need someone who can be present, who can remember their schedules, who won't almost kill them with negligence." I started. "The cookie was in your pantry," Vivian said softly. "You bought it. You forgot to check the label again." I hadn't bought it. I knew I hadn't, but I didn't know what I knew anymore. The pills, the fog, the months of Vivian rewriting my history in small, careful strokes. I couldn't trust my own memory. That was the point. That was the architecture of my destruction. I signed the papers. Not divorce papers, not yet. Voluntary commitment papers. A 90-day stay at a wellness center where the walls were soft colors and the doors locked from the outside. Vivian drove me. Marcus stayed with the kids. In the parking lot, she hugged me, her perfume filling my lungs, her voice warm in my ear. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being so fragile. It makes this so much easier." I was in the facility for 6 months. Not 90 days, complications, they said, setbacks, concerns about your stability. Vivian visited weekly, bringing photos of the children, updates on their lives, stories about how Lily had stopped asking for me, how Noah called her Mommy Vive now, how Marcus had taken down our wedding photos to help them adjust. I got out on a Thursday. I took a bus to my house, our house, the one I'd decorated, the one where my children had learned to walk, and I stood across the street and watched. Vivian was in the garden, wearing my apron, the yellow one with daisies that Marcus had bought me for our first anniversary. Lily was beside her, holding a watering can, her hair in the braids I'd never learned. Noah was on the porch, playing with a truck, and when the front door opened, Marcus stepped out in the shirt I'd given him for his 30th birthday, the one that matched my eyes, and he kissed Vivian on the mouth like she belonged there. I didn't cross the street. I didn't knock on the door. I walked to a motel 6 blocks away, and I lay on a bed that smelled of bleach, and I made a promise. Not out loud. Just in the part of myself that Vivian hadn't medicated into silence, the part that Marcus hadn't loved into doubt, the part that still knew my children's names and faces, and the sound of their laughter before they'd learned to call someone else Mommy. "I will come back for you," I promised my children's ghosts. "I will come back, and I will let her raise what she stole until they ask why. And then I will be the answer." Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're here, maybe you know what it means to watch your sister wear your life like a costume, while your children forget your face. Maybe you know the particular horror of signing your own commitment papers, because you've been convinced you're the danger. Maybe you know what it's like to stand across the street from your own home and swear to the asphalt that you will not disappear. If that's you, subscribe. Not because I have comfort, because I have a question. And because the story I'm about to tell you ends with me sitting in a family court waiting room, watching my daughter ask my sister why Daddy sleeps in Auntie's room. The answer I never spoke hung in the air like smoke. Here's my story. I left the motel after 3 days, not recovered, leaving. I found a lawyer, a shark named Alina Voss, who specialized in reversal of custody after fraudulent institutionalization, a niche she'd carved after her own sister tried the same trick. She listened to my story, reviewed my medical records, hired a private investigator, and smiled a smile that had no warmth in it. They built a case. Said, medical neglect, emotional instability, voluntary commitment. It's solid. But solid cases are like solid walls. They're built one brick at a time, and if you pull out the right brick, the whole thing comes down. "What brick?" I asked. "Your sisters need to be seen," Alina said. "Narcissists don't steal husbands. They steal audiences. She doesn't want your life. She wants your witness. She needs you to see her winning. That's her weakness. That's where we pull." I got a job. Not a chef job. I couldn't compete with my own resume. Not without explaining the gap, the facility, the stress-induced cognitive issues that followed me like a shadow. I worked in a bakery, 4 a.m. to noon, shaping dough in the dark while the world slept. I rented a studio apartment, 1 room, hot plate, bathroom down the hall. I saved every dollar. I rebuilt my credit, my reputation, my mind. I went to therapy. Real therapy, not the pill and fog kind. I learned to trust my memory again, to recognize gaslighting, to understand that my fragility wasn't a flaw but a feature. The sensitivity that made me love deeply also made me vulnerable to those who weaponized love. I got stronger. Not harder, stronger. The difference between a wall and a muscle. And I watched. From across the street, from park benches, from the bakery window where I could see the school bus stop. I watched Vivian become me. She wore my clothes, she'd kept them for the kids' comfort. She cooked my recipes from the box she'd salvaged from the donation pile, the one I'd thought lost. She told my stories when your mother was little, she'd say to Lily, recounting my childhood memories as if they were hers, building a history out of stolen chapters. She was good at it, better than good. She'd had practice. A lifetime of taking what was mine and making it hers, of wearing my face until the mirror forgot the difference. But she made mistakes. She couldn't help it. Narcissists need witnesses and witnesses need proximity, and proximity creates evidence. She posted on social media. Constantly. Photos of our family, our home, our Sunday tradition, my traditions, my home, my family, filtered through her lens and her captions and her need for validation. She checked in at restaurants where Marcus and I had celebrated anniversaries. She used my children's full names, their school names, their schedules. She built a digital trail so complete that Alina wept with joy when I showed her. She's documenting her own fraud, Alina said. Every post is an admission. Every check-in is evidence. We don't need to build a case. She's building it for us. But Alina wanted to move fast. File for custody reversal, emergency hearing, expose the affair and the conspiracy and the fraudulent commitment. I said no. Not yet, I said. The kids are young. They don't understand betrayal, they understand presence. If I snatch them back now, I'm the crazy mother who disappeared and reappeared. I'm the disruption. I'm the villain in Vivian's story. So what do? Alina asked. We wait, I said. We let her raise them. We let her become me so completely that she forgets where the costume ends and the woman begins. And we wait for the question. What question? The one she can't answer, the one that breaks the spell. The one that makes them look at her and see the lie. It took 3 years. I stayed invisible. I moved to a different neighborhood, a different bakery, a different life. I dated no one, my trust was still rebuilding, my heart still learning to beat without checking for permission. I focused on work, on therapy, on the slow accumulation of evidence. Alina's investigator documented everything. Vivian's spending of my savings, her manipulation of Marcus's business accounts, her history of similar behavior, 2 previous relationships with men who'd left partners she'd befriended, a pattern so clear in retrospect that I wondered how I'd missed it. Marcus reached out once. A year after I'd left the facility, a letter to my lawyer forwarded to me. He was sorry. He hadn't known how far it would go. He missed me. He missed the kid's real mother. He wanted to fix things. I didn't respond. Marcus wasn't my enemy, but he wasn't my ally either. He was a man who'd chosen comfort over courage, who'd let my sister rewrite our history because it was easier than fighting for it. His regret was real, but it was also late, and late regret is just another form of absence. I watched my children grow from a distance. Lily turned 9, then 10. Noah turned 7, then 8. I sent birthday cards, anonymous, postmarked from different cities, with no return address but always the same message. I see you, I remember you, I am here. Vivian intercepted most of them, I learned later, but some got through. Lily kept them in a shoebox under her bed. Noah drew pictures of the letter lady and showed them to his therapist, the therapist Vivian had hired to help with adjustment issues, who'd become my unwitting ally, documenting the children's confusion, their questions, their growing sense that something was wrong in the story they'd been told. And then the question. I wasn't there for it. I heard about it from the investigator who heard it from the therapist's notes, which Alina obtained through a subpoena in our slowly building case. But I can imagine it. I have imagined it 1,000 times in the dark before dawn while I shaped dough and waited for the world to wake. Lily was 10. She'd found a photo, one Vivian had missed, hidden in a box of my things in the garage. A wedding photo. Not Vivian's wedding to Marcus, they hadn't had one, just the courthouse paperwork, just the gradual assumption of my life. My wedding. Marcus and me, young and hopeful, and behind us Vivian, smiling the smile she always smiled, the one that didn't reach her eyes. Lily showed it to Noah. They studied it. They compared it to the photos in the hallway. Vivian and Marcus at the beach, Vivian and Marcus at Christmas, Vivian and Marcus and them, always them, the family that had never included me except as a ghost, a absence, a cautionary tale. That night at dinner Lily asked, "Why does Daddy sleep in Auntie's room?" Vivian froze. Marcus choked. Noah, younger, less guarded, added, Jordan's dad sleeps in his mom's room, but Jordan's mom is his mom. You're our aunt. Why do you sleep with daddy? The silence that followed was the sound of a spell breaking. Not completely, not yet, but cracking. A fissure in the foundation of the story Vivian had built. The first question that couldn't be answered with your mother was fragile or Auntie is helping or some families are different. Vivian tried. She always tried. She said that families came in many forms, that love was what mattered, that sometimes grown-ups made complicated choices. But Lily was 10, and 10 is the age when children start to see the seams in adult stories, when the words stop matching the world, when they realize that complicated is just another way of saying lie. She asked again, and again. At school, to her teacher, to her friends' parents, to the school counselor who was mandated to report concerns about family structure. She asked why her mother's name wasn't on her birth certificate anymore. Vivian had petitioned to add herself as legal mother, and the court, seeing my institutionalization and voluntary absence, had granted it. She asked why her real mom sent letters from nowhere. She asked why no one would talk about the woman in the wedding photo who looked like her. The investigation started small. A social worker visit. A court review. A judge who looked at the file and saw irregularities, the speed of the custody transfer, the lack of my input, the pattern of Vivian's social media posts that told a story very different from the legal narrative. Elena filed our motion. Emergency custody reversal, fraud, conspiracy, false imprisonment. The case was assigned to a judge who'd written law review articles on the weaponization of mental health in custody disputes. We had evidence, the investigator's reports, the therapist's notes, the social worker's concerns, my clean bill of health from 3 independent psychiatrists, the financial records showing Vivian's systematic draining of my accounts. But we also had something better. We had Lily, 10 years old, articulate, angry, confused, and asking the question that Vivian couldn't answer: why does Daddy sleep in Auntie's room? The hearing took 2 days. I sat on one side of the courtroom, Vivian and Marcus on the other. My sister wore my blue suit, the one I'd bought for my first Michelin review, and her face was the face I'd seen in mirrors my whole life, the face she'd stolen and worn until it fit her better than me. Lily testified. Not from the witness stand. Elena had fought for a closed chamber, a comfortable room, a court advocate to hold her hand. But her words were read into the record, her questions, her confusion, her growing understanding that the woman who'd raised her for 3 years had built a castle out of someone else's life. She told me my real mom was sick. Lily's statement read, that she couldn't take care of us, that she chose to leave. But the letter lady says she sees me, she remembers me, and Auntie Viv gets mad when I talk about her. She says I'm ungrateful. She says family is who shows up, but she never told me why she's in Mommy's bed. Noah's testimony was shorter. He was 8, he liked trucks and dinosaurs and the color orange. He didn't understand why everyone was fighting. He just wanted to know, where is the real Mommy? Why did she go away? Can she come back now? The judge ruled in my favor. Full custody, effective immediately. Vivian's parental rights, the ones she'd stolen, forged, manipulated into existence, terminated. Marcus granted supervised visitation, contingent on therapy and honest disclosure to the children about his role in my absence. But the ruling wasn't the victory. The victory came later, in the courthouse hallway, when Lily saw me for the first time in 3 years and didn't run to Vivian. She stood still. She studied my face, the face she'd seen in photos, in dreams, in the letters she'd hidden from her aunt. She looked at Vivian, who was crying the performative tears she'd always cried, the ones that worked on adults but never on children who can smell manipulation before they have words for it. Then Lily walked to me. Slowly, carefully, like approaching a memory that might vanish. She stopped 3 feet away. She looked up at me with Marcus's eyes and my chin and the innocence I'd tried to burn the world to protect. Why did you leave? She asked. It was the question. The real one. Not Vivian's version. Not the story of fragility and failure and voluntary absence. The question that had lived in my daughter's heart for 3 years, that had grown with every bedtime story Vivian told, every explanation that didn't quite fit, every night she lay awake wondering why her mother had chosen to disappear. I didn't leave, I said. My voice was steady. The voice I'd rebuilt in therapy, in bakeries, in the dark before dawn. I was taken. By people who told me I was broken, who made me believe I was dangerous, who wanted you to forget me. But I never forgot you. I never stopped seeing you. I never stopped being here. Lily considered this. She was 10. She understood more than adults gave her credit for and less than she deserved. She looked at Vivian, who was still crying, still performing, still trying to be the center of a story that had finally stopped being about her. "She told me you didn't want us," Lily said. "That you chose to go away, that you were too fragile to be our mom." "Do I look fragile?" I asked. Lily shook her head. Then slowly she smiled. The first smile I'd seen from her in 3 years, the smile that was mine before Vivian had tried to make it hers. "Can we go home?" Lily asked. "Our real home?" I took her hand. I took Noah's hand. He'd wandered over during the conversation, drawn by the gravity of something he didn't understand but recognized as important. And I walked out of the courthouse, past Vivian's tears and Marcus's regret, and the wreckage of a life my sister had tried to build from my bones. I didn't keep the house. I sold it. Too many ghosts, too many memories of Vivian in my kitchen, my garden, my bed. I bought a new house, smaller, warmer, with a backyard where Lily could plant flowers and Noah could dig for dinosaurs. I went back to cooking, not Michelin star, not yet, but a small restaurant my own, where the menu changed with the seasons and the staff knew my story and didn't treat me like I was fragile. Marcus visited. Supervised at first, then gradually more, as he worked through his therapy and his guilt and his need to be forgiven. I didn't forgive him, not completely. But I let him know his children, let them know him as a flawed man who'd made terrible choices, not as a villain or a hero but as human, the most complicated thing to be. Vivian tried to contact me. Letters at first, then calls, then showing up at the restaurant, at the school, at my front door. She wanted to explain, to apologize, to work things out. I got a restraining order. She violated it. She was arrested, briefly given probation and mandatory therapy. I don't know if she went. I don't care. She is not my story anymore. Lily is 13 now. Noah is 11. They know the truth, not all of it. Not the details of the affair and the conspiracy and the pills, but the shape of it. That their aunt took advantage of their mother's illness, real or manufactured, to steal her life. That their father allowed it, participated in it, regrets it. That their mother fought her way back from nothing to be with them, not because she was strong in the way Vivian had always claimed to be, but because she was stubborn, because she loved them, because she refused to be erased. They ask questions still. Not why did you leave anymore, but how did you come back? And were you scared? And do you hate Auntie Viv? I answer honestly, I was scared, I was broken. I don't hate her. Hate requires energy I no longer have to give. I came back because of them. Because of the promise I made in a motel room, because of the letters I wrote in the dark, because of the question I knew they would eventually ask. Lily asked it again, last month. Not in confusion, but in understanding. We were in the kitchen, making pierogi, my grandmother's recipe, recovered from Vivian's files, the one she'd tried to make hers. Lily was folding them carefully, her fingers learning the pinch I'd learned at her age. "Why did Auntie Viv take you?" she asked. "She had her own life, her own boyfriends. Why did she need yours?" I considered the question. It was the right one. The one I'd spent years trying to answer for myself. Because she didn't want a life, I said. She wanted an audience. She wanted someone to watch her win. And the only win that mattered was mine, not because she wanted it, but because she wanted me not to have it. Lily nodded. She understood. At 13, she understood more than I had at 32. "That's sad," she said. Yes, I agreed. "It is." She folded another pierogi. She placed it on the tray. She looked at me with Marcus's eyes and my chin and the wisdom she'd earned by asking questions no one wanted to answer. "I'm glad you're back," she said. "The real you. Not the one she tried to make." I smiled. The real me. The one who'd been fragile and broken and erased, who'd rebuilt herself in bakeries and courtrooms and the dark before dawn. The one who'd let her sister raise her children for 3 years because she understood that the only victory that mattered was the one her children chose for themselves. "I'm glad too," I said. "I'm Sarah. I'm 38 years old. I'm a mother who watched her sister wear her wedding dress in a courthouse bathroom, who signed her own commitment papers because she'd been convinced she was the danger, who stood across the street from her own home and swore to the asphalt that she would not disappear. I learned that the opposite of cruelty is not strength. It is patience. It is waiting for the question that breaks the spell. It is trusting that your children will eventually see the lie, if you give them the space to ask. If someone ever stole your life and convinced your children you didn't want them, or if you're still standing across the street from something that used to be yours, drop a broken heart below. I read every single comment. And if this story made you want to ask the question no one wants to answer, hit subscribe. We tell stories like this every week. What are you finally ready to take back? Backhand index pointing down.